key modern railways. In-depth railway news.
Hello and welcome to the second Modern Railways podcast. This is where we give you a little flip through the magazine, see what's coming up in the June edition. Well, the strange times continue and all of the grim news keeps coming in, but Modern Railways has some good news for you. Not just one, but two really good news items, which you'll hear about from the other correspondents as we come along going through this little preview. First of all, we're going to hear from the editor, Philip Sherratt. What's coming up from you, Philip?
Thanks, Ian, and it's good to be speaking to you again from my home here on the edge of Nottingham and talking a bit about what's in the June issue of Modern Railways. The lead feature this month is about Cross Country, the UK's most extensive operator, running from Scotland down to the West Country. And I interviewed Cross Country's Managing Director, Tom Joyner, during April. Obviously, we did talk about coronavirus and the ongoing impact it's having and some of the measures that Cross Country is taking to deal with that. But we also focused on some of the wider projects that are ongoing. There was a recent announcement about a small but not insignificant capacity increase on cross-country services through a deed of amendment to the franchise, so we discussed that. The move to a regional structure, appointment of regional directors, and how that plays into the devolution agenda. Many of the ongoing operational issues, but also some longer term thinking that's starting to take place around cross country. Even though it's only got a short franchise at the moment, there's thinking going on particularly around decarbonisation and the challenges facing cross country as an operator which only runs diesel trains at the moment. And obviously there is a big move away from diesel. So it's quite a wide-ranging feature, lots to cover in there, so I hope you'll find it interesting. And obviously, as well as the various features in the magazine, we've got our news coverage. It's been, despite coronavirus, it's been quite a pleasant surprise that there's still been a reasonable amount of news going on. There's been quite a lot of rolling stock moves around the network, and we cover those in our Moving Wheels column, including a couple of deliveries, the First Class 170 going to East Midlands Railway, the First Class 196 going to West Midlands Trains, and various other moves of stock. There's been the last Stadler unit delivered to Greater Anglia, so they're all covered as well. And obviously a significant news item was HS2 last month, which the government granted notice to proceed, which means construction can begin of phase 1 between London and Birmingham. So we report on that and some of the detail that was within the phase 1 business case that was released at the same time. And there'll be further coverage about HS2 in the months to come. So it's obviously a project that's going to be going on for some time, and we will make sure we follow it closely. So there's plenty going on. It's not just coronavirus. Well, we cover the ongoing issues with that. There's plenty else going on the railway for us to report on. So I hope you find the issue interesting. It's available as ever online, or you can subscribe to get it posted to you if you can't get out to the shops. So thanks for listening, and hope to see you all again soon. And in the meantime, make sure you stay safe.
Thank you, Philip. Right, so there's a quick review of the whole magazine. Now, informed sources, Roger Ford. He's going to tell us a little bit what's coming up in his column. I've mentioned already there's some good news, not to give too much away on electrification, enough to let me wear my Make Electrification Great Again hat, but not for very long because it lowers the tone. So, before we get to the good news, by the way, Roger will, of course, mention the big story of the moment, which is by no means good news. Roger, what have you got for us?
This month, Informed Sources covers 3 topics which I've been reporting on in recent months. Last month, I was very critical of the Department for Transport's Transport Decarbonisation document. This month, it's really upbeat now that I've seen details of the Network Rail Transport Decarbonisation Traction Strategy, which is very positive about electrification, and also, for the first time, gives us a considered professional view on the scope for battery and hydrogen fuel cell trains. That's going to be published in July, but here's a preview from Modern Railways. Not so good news, in fact very bad news, is another example of safety critical communications. going awry. You may remember that a couple of months back I reported on an incident at Balham where poor communications resulted in a near miss by about 75 seconds. The case I report this month is far worse, with track workers jumping aside about half a second before a train went by. This was entirely due to the failure to use safety critical communications protocols. Completing the main items is a further update on that topic which I revealed several months back, the problem with accessible coaches for rail replacement services. I have to emphasise that this is all about coaches and not buses, because buses have to be, service buses have to be accessible. It began with a 1 month extension at the beginning of the year when the minister was quite unrealistic. That was then extended to the end of April, and there's now a further extension to the end of the year. There's been some very good work done by the Rail Delivery Group, which I've now seen, and that will appear in the next issue. This is much more realistic about the availability of coaches and the market in general. And as always, the column ends with Tin Watch, my month-by-month review of the reliability, or not so reliability, of the new trains coming into service. As this was period 13, the end of the railway reporting year, what I've done is produce a headmaster's report from the Lord Nelson of Stafford Memorial Academy for Aspirant Manufacturers. I base this on a house system, each house being a manufacturer. I wondered, all houses at schools nowadays have to have names of inspiring leaders. So I wondered how I could do that without being controversial, and Mrs. Ford suggested that international tennis players might be a good idea. So I hope you'll enjoy that. That's all from me for now, but just in case you're wondering who produced the painting behind me, it's by an artist called Louis Turpin, who specialises in scenery and flowers, and we've got two more on my left-hand side. Goodbye.
Thank you, Roger. So, nice picture as well there. I wish we'd seen more of it now, don't you? Anyway, next up we have our previous editor, James Abbott, who is going to be telling us what he's going to be writing about this time, and again another little review of the general situation. So over to you, James.
Hello, I'm James Abbott, consultant editor of Modern Railways, and it's now 2 months since lockdown was imposed. With some of the lockdown measures now being eased and more people returning to work, the question on everyone's lips in our industry is, how long-lasting will the effects of the lockdown be on the railways? We're currently in the bizarre position that the government is advising the railway operators to make the trains as long as possible, while at the same time asking everybody not to travel by public transport if it can be avoided. Of course, that's all part of the effort to maintain physical distancing, but it's certainly at variance with all the efforts that have been made throughout my career covering the railways to maximise loadings by encouraging travel and providing resources just great enough to carry the traffic on offer. But what's going to happen longer term when society has returned more towards what we think of as normality? Well, the first point to make when attempting to answer this question is, of course, that demand for travel is derived demand, that is, dependent on the state of the economy at large. So, we know the economy is going to be in pretty poor shape, and we also know that many people are going to be concerned about going back to using public transport due to a perceived risk of viral infection. Coupled with that, we've got the lockdown massively accelerating a previous trend towards increased working from home, and everybody's now familiar with video conferencing. Although I think the impact of this last factor may be exaggerated, because I don't know about you, but I'm heartily fed up with Zoom, and I yearn for the time when I can speak to people in the flesh again. But plainly, railway ridership is going to be down compared to 2019. How long will it be before we return to those heady levels of traffic? Well, what do the experts think? Let's start with some expensive ones. If you've got a cool €3,200 plus VAT to spare, you can get the report Impact of the COVID-19 Crisis on the Railway Sector in Europe, which has been produced by the German consultants SCI Verkehr. Now, on the assumption that you haven't got £3,000 to spare, I can tell you that the SCI folks reckon there could well be a resurgence of the virus in the autumn, unfortunately, and a second lockdown, which would lead to a 40% slump in passenger traffic in Europe for 2020 as a whole. As for freight transport across continental Europe, they reckon that wouldn't be quite so badly affected, but it would still decline by nearly 20% this year. With this scenario, the study suggests that business would not recover to pre-crisis levels until 2023 or 2024. So that's probably the sort of magnitude we're talking about for the UK railways too, although here the dominance of the London commuter market could exacerbate the effect. Here's a little anecdote from the city to underline the point. A friend of mine who works in a big office block near St Paul's was talking to the manager of the building, and he was getting all enthusiastic about the growth of working from home, allowing the firm to consolidate on fewer floors, giving the opportunity to sublet 3 whole floors. Yes, said my pal, reluctant to prick his bubble, but who are you going to let them to? So now the Sussex CRP, unlike some smaller CRPs elsewhere in the country, this one covers a raft of lines in the south of England, with its reach now extending along the North Downs line to Reading in Berkshire in the west, all the way to Ashford, Kent, on the Marsh Link in the east. And now it's got its sights set on adding metro routes in South London to those it represents, taking it even further from its Sussex routes. Now, in the June issue of Modern Railways, I explore all the fun stuff the Sussex CRP has got up to, from promoting train travel for disadvantaged groups to marking the significance of Jess's Seat, a remarkable bit of topiary alongside the line at Chilworth that we celebrated in the Blood and Custard column in the April issue of Modern Railways. So it's nice to leave you on an upbeat note, although I can't help pointing out that my Hastings contact, who used to work for the railways and now promotes the resort's attractions, fears for the future of the town once this is all over. So go on, prove him wrong by visiting the coast once travel restrictions are lifted. So I'll leave you with a picture I picked up in a shop in a back street in Hastings recently, which will make you think of summer and all the attractions of the coast. Goodbye.
Thank you, James. Funny, everyone's on artwork this month, aren't they? Just a minute, sorry, just something in my way here. You won't catch me gratuitously promoting my artwork in this. I'll just get this just out the way, and then we'll carry on. My pan-up column this month is it's in 2 parts. The first part is the great excitement and buzz that came with the regeneration of the intercity fleet in the form of IEP. And no, you're quite right, I'm joking, there was no buzz and excitement. And it occurred to me that if we're spending billions of pounds on HS2, I think we should get some buzz and excitement, and the trains for HS2 should be great. Well, the good news is the specification for the HS2 trains is actually technically pretty good, but it does maintain the DFT favourite, which caused problems with IEP, which is having essential features and desirable features, except this time it's rebranded into being preferred. And just to take an example, you might guess, of course, all the things where there's a preference and a bit of flexibility are all the passenger-facing areas, like noise, ride and so on. And one little favourite of mine, which is the deadlight between the windows. And the specification says 300mm. There we go, 300mm. Okay, that's all right then, I can live with that, it's not too bad. But it also says that that's desirable, but it even gives you an option of 500mm. And to me, that is not acceptable, because that's seats without windows. I really don't like that. So that's what it's about, really. Trying to make HS2 A really special train, something that you get in and go, wow, this is nice, and you sit into your seat, say, oh yes, this is good. That's not going to happen unless we sort these things out, so let's hope that we do. So that's about it from me for this month, and look forward to seeing you all when we trail the July edition. Goes quick, you're having fun, doesn't it? Okay, bye everybody.
Visit www.keymodernrailways.com for more interesting and essential information about the British Railway Network.